Good evening. I'd like to call the Community and Economic Development Committee. Roll call, please.
Alderman Subak,
Here.
Alderman Coles,
Here.
Alderman Winger. Here. Alderman Knipe, Alderman Peisig,
Here.
Alderman Wesley,
Here.
Alderman Shockey,
Here.
Alderman Ptolemy.
Here. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 16th, 2006. Do I have a second?
Second.
On a question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The first item on the agenda tonight, we were going to talk about the proposed B4 zoning district boundaries, but I feel that it's important that before we do this, we send the actual zoning, get the zoning approved by the ZBA. So what I'd like to do is table this and ask for a second to a future meeting.
Second.
On a question?
Question.
I'm sorry, there's no question on the table. I forgot, sorry. Okay, the next item then we have is information item. No, I didn't. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item we have is information item, affordable housing program, and I'd like to ask Jeff to talk about this.
In addition to the inclusion of the affordable housing section in the proposed B4 zoning district, staff is also looking at some ways to incorporate affordable housing into the Wooddale residential housing market. Staff has been attending some meetings at DuPage County. They have a DuPage County Affordable Housing Coalition. Myself and Ross Clicker have been to a couple of these meetings. We've also met with some outside consultants, Metropolitan Planning Council, to name one of them. One of the more interesting groups we came in contact with a couple weeks ago was the American Institute of Architects Northeastern Illinois chapter. What this group focuses on is it's actually their 150th anniversary, and why that's important to Wooddale is they're looking to do some community building projects basically for free, specifically in areas of DuPage County to celebrate that 150-year anniversary. They're looking at certain characteristics, and when they spoke to representatives from Wooddale, they thought that we met a lot of these characteristics that they're looking for. What they would do is they would come in, they would meet with staff and key members of council or all members of council for a strategic planning session. They could draw up conceptual plans of what affordable housing could look like in Wooddale, areas where affordable housing might be a good fit in Wooddale. And this is all free. Staff is planning on meeting with this group later next week. This is a good opportunity, staff believes, and more details would come after we meet with them, and we wouldn't go any further without committee direction or council approval. But at this time, we're just gathering information from this group. And in a second study that could go along with the AIA study could be a group, the University of Notre Dame, their planning division. They have undergraduates that could work on the conceptual ideas from the AIA and actually draw up architectural plans and get more specific details going, and then turn those over to a developer, and that would also be free. So this would all be of no cost to the city.
Great. Does everybody understand what affordable housing? Could you give us a little definition of what you're talking about so that people don't misunderstand when you're talking about affordable housing?
Affordable housing is defined as housing that's available at 60% of the mean income level of the area. What that would mean is that someone in DuPage County would be looking at housing that it ranges from the $175,000 to $250,000 range would be considered affordable housing. With the recent spike in the housing market in DuPage County and throughout the entire region, the number of houses that are in that price range that are available are growing smaller, and as we've even dealt with in Wooddale, as some of these houses are torn down for redevelopment, the number of affordable housing units in the area is getting smaller and smaller.
Thank you. We heard last night attended a dinner, and we heard last night that the projections for population in metropolitan Chicago, they're projecting 9 million people by the year 2020. And 2020 is not that far off. So we're going to have to look at ways to make sure that we can keep people in our community. So I say go for it. You know, we should look at doing this. So definitely. Alderman Subak?
One of my concerns, though, with the B4 district is locating it there is I think that's going to be newer housing in that area. And when the state statute came down with about affordable housing, or the county, whichever it was, Wooddale satisfied those criteria. We are one of the few communities left in DuPage County that still has a trailer park, and that helped us fall into the affordable housing. So before we redesign a potential B4 zoning district, my personal opinion is that that's not where the affordable housing is going to be, especially if you're talking single-family homes. If they'll allow it to be townhouses or something different, but there's other locations we have that I think would be more desirable
No,
for
you're,
affordable housing.
you're absolutely correct, and that's what they want to look at. They want to look at what areas would be best, not necessarily within the new B4 district, but somewhere in another area of town.
Alderman Coles?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Right, we are looking at three possible areas. The area behind Georgetown, the older apartments that need to be redone, and the infrastructure has to be updated. The trailer park for a future of development, and there's other areas that would lend themselves. And that's one of the reasons why we'd like to have professional planners offer us ideas and suggestions. Everything will be determined by the city council and will fit into a plan.
Just,
Really, the point of meeting with this group, if they decide they want to meet with us, is to get all of council's input and work together on a conceptual plan and then take it from there. And it's all free. So.
well, I was just going to say, I was just going to make sure you state that again real clearly, that it's possible that we're going to get these services free. Keyword.
It's
free.
definite that the services would be free if they
Okay.
provide the services.
Okay. Alderman Coles?
Are these government finance units?
No,
No.
there's many structures that developers can use in determining affordable housing. It just means that the price point has to be in the affordable range. It does not mean government subsidized. It does not mean
All right,
anything of that
subsidized
nature.
renting and something like.
Correct.
Yeah.
And as far as the TOD district, that we did offer the affordable bonus that if a percentage of the units, again, affordable housing can be condos, it can be townhomes, it can be single family. It can be a percentage of the condos in a building. It can be, where you can have building price ranges that go in buildings from $150,000 up to $450,000, depending on how the developer wants to organize those structures.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Johnson?
Just a point of clarification, the mobile home park, unfortunately, there's only two of them in DuPage County, one of them in Wooddale, but that does not qualify as affordable housing. They don't consider it permanent housing.
It was my understanding from conversations with the attorney that we were close to that number of not, and that pushed us over maybe.
You're absolutely right
misunderstood.
that we do qualify currently, that we do have more than what they suggest as the minimum for affordable housing,
Okay.
based on the existing housing stock.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Alderman Coles?
I'd like to say something about the A2 route. Over the weekend, I thought about it, and I went to about 10 committees like everybody else did. And, I realized that we turned it down for now, but, if the state of Illinois decides to move that street, the people that were here, which I really feel sorry for, but if the state wanted to, and they want to put that road in, they're going to take the land, declare it, condemn it, and take it cheaper than what they can sell it for. So, this may not happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but you don't know. If the plans that we did in phase one looks good to the IDOT, they may do it, because that is a state highway. And the people that came in here, I realize I feel sorry for them, that this could happen. What? I know, but I didn't say a word while everybody else said it last week, and it took me a week to come up with it, all right? I had to think about it. I don't jump to conclusions. I think about before I say something. And this can happen. It happened on 355 when they put the extension in from 55 to Route 80. And they just condemned property all the way down there. And this can happen right here in this city. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Coles. Items to be considered at future meetings. We have Economic Development Consultant Phase 1 report, and now we have added the proposed B4 zoning district boundaries. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add at this time? Hearing nothing, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
The manager, I think.
Sorry. Mr. Manager? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to announce that we will have a special meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee on the 24th of December to consider the update on the train station. We'll have the architect here.
What's that?
I mean, the 20, what did I say?
You said the 24th.
21st of December,
24th is Christmas Eve.
not the 24th. I'm sorry.
And that meeting will start at 7
That meeting will start at 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
That's a regular meeting.
next week, Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn
Second.
Second.
on a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I'm calling to order the Finance and Administration Committee meeting of December 14th, 2006. Will the minute taker please reflect the same members present? I make a motion to approve minutes dated November 9th, 2006. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, report and recommendation, policy regarding suspension of refuse charges for seasonal residents. And this is something that the administration has brought forward based on, I believe, on requests of either suspending the garbage pickup charges due to either the people not being present in the area for an extended period of time, perhaps going on vacation or going to a second home and not being in the area, or either moved out, etc. And the thing with the garbage pickup is it is a fixed charge, and we're in a contract agreed on a fixed number of units. So with that being understood and coupled with presenting clerical and enforcement challenges, it's my perception that our time would be better spent looking at water, ways of looking at water and charging the residents, looking at our fixed rates versus, or in the summer when residents are doing their sprinkling and looking at not charging them as much for sewage, et cetera. So I feel our time is better spent looking at that. And with all that being said, I will ask Maggie Powers to take us through this proposal.
Thank you, Chairman Winger. Essentially, our contract with BFI, Allied Waste Systems, doesn't provide for us to call the drivers and say, skip this house or skip that house. They do charge us a fixed rate, and I believe we have 2 more, if not 3 more years on this contract. So the city would have to pay the $18.30 charge each month for each of those people if we were not charging them. And then since we charge $19.17 per household, because we have an administrative and billing charge in there, we'd lose that revenue as well. But I think the toughest part of this would be to try to enforce it. Let's say somebody who's a snowbird calls up and says, I'm leaving here December 1st, I'll be back March 31st. We would have to go and physically inspect to see if the people were there, had returned. If indeed they were producing refuse again, and then we would have to tell BFI and Allied, and they'd have to maintain a list of who they were servicing. There'd be no possible way that we could prove or disprove if someone's there. And as a matter of fact, when people leave their properties vacant, sometimes people use their own refuse containers and put their refuse in front of someone else's house. We would never know. So from an enforcement standpoint, it's virtually impossible to do that. And since we don't get the opportunity to say to Allied, don't service this property for 3 months, and deduct that from our bill accordingly, we would just be paying for the service, and the resident would be allowed no charge, but there wouldn't be any way for us to prove or disprove it.
Thank you. And Wesley?
I agree on the vacation that we shouldn't suspend it, but according to the memo that we had here on the house on Addison Road, 327, you know, I could see suspending it. It's easy for us to control if a house catches on fire, that if they aren't living there, we should be able to do that. It's unfortunate their house caught on fire and they haven't been living there, but we still charge them for the garbage. I think that would be easier to control than the vacation one.
But the city wouldn't be able to control it through Allied. I mean, we don't have a contract that permits that, is the point I'm making. We have a certain amount of customers that we're charged for, and that's it.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Subak?
It's an unfortunate case for the one on Addison, but if you made a rule for there, then it's going to be next if I'm remodeling my house and out of there for 4 months, or if a developer is remodeling a house. So, you know, it's an unfortunate situation. I think you just got to leave it, because we negotiate the contract with Allied, knowing that they're going to have all the customers for a full amount of years. We've gotten a good rate. It was flat for the first 2 years. So, unfortunately, it's a rule that I agree with staff's recommendation to leave it the way it is.
Okay, then, given the discussion, do I keep this for information only, or call it to a vote?
No
Okay.
action is necessary.
Okay, this is for information only. Next item, report and recommendation, rebates and tax reductions. This is at City Council request. This is looking at how we can give back to the residents in some form or fashion based on the recent referendum, and looking at different options. To me, there's a couple options. There's actually two options, or a combination of both. There is potentially doing a $25 rebate on for the water customers, or option B, looking to work with the vehicle sticker and either rolling back to the $75,000, or some aldermen I know would like to roll back even further. So this is where we can discuss the options and look at which way we want to do this. And both are viable, in my opinion. If we do the rebate on the water, then we certainly have to figure out how we rebate all water customers, not just per bill, because there are water customers that don't receive a bill. They're billed via their association for the high rises, multi-dwelling. So we would have to work through the logistics of that as well, but it still is viable. Ms. Powers, would you like to add to the conversation before I call on Alderman?
Yes, Chairman Winger. Actually, I have three options here, and I have a fourth to tell you about that I just learned of today. The third option would have been to reduce the real estate taxes. Since last week you passed the tax levy and the tax abatement ordinance, it would be too late to do that for 2006, but you could consider doing it for 2007. From the standpoint of rebates to water customers, I think, and residential water customers, certainly that's feasible for us to do. And the one thing I would caution you is that the revenue that's going to come in from the new non-home rule sales tax won't come into the water fund. It has to be used for infrastructure. So the water fund is an enterprise fund, and it's designed to pay for itself, pay for all of its operations and maintenance, and its capital items. So having said that, I mean, we could do interfund transfers, but the sales tax would not be going directly to the water and sewer fund. Vehicle sticker fees, we did get a lot of complaints last summer about raising that fee to 30 from 15. The 75,000 would just be the reduction. So we'd go back to the city receiving about $125,000 a year in vehicle sticker revenue as opposed to 200,000. And this one would be fairly simple to do because it would be prospective. In other words, we wouldn't have to try to refund $15 to all the people who bought stickers this year, which would be a nightmare. We would just going forward, starting May 15th of next year, reduce the rates, print the forms accordingly, and the senior rate stayed the same anyway. It was $1. So the change would be for the people who are paying the full passenger car rental. And I believe we also had adjusted motorcycle and truck fees accordingly. So all of those could go back. But it's approximately a $75,000 difference. And another way to look at this is that this fiscal year, the city had $75,000 of extra revenue that was generated by sale of vehicle stickers. And we just wouldn't have that. But you would have the sales tax revenue beginning July 1st of 2007. So that offsets that. The fourth thing is probably the one that is going to be most interesting to the residents. Jeff has been in contact with Allied Waste Systems about providing each of our residential customers with a 90-gallon trash toter. If you've seen these, they have really strong construction. They have a lid that stays shut. They're on wheels, much easier for people to move their garbage down to the curb. And if the city decided to do that, we don't have exact prices yet. They're still working on it. It would probably be anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 a year, or $100,000 to $150,000 to purchase them, and then we would charge the residents 25 cents a month to amortize the cost, and they would pay that. So then it would be Allied's responsibility to keep providing those containers, and that might be really useful for seniors who are having trouble hauling the trash. Certainly, it would stop the animal problems, animal infestation when people are using paper bags or plastic bags. Makes the community look neater, and we know that there are many other communities that are doing this. According to the people at Allied, they said that they could handle this. They'd have that truck that has the arms in the front that automatically lifts the toter. So they like it because it saves the backs of their employees. And when we get the prices, we'll bring that to you. But just for discussion purposes, that is also going to be available.
Thank you. Alderman Ptolemy.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the way I look at it is the first one that we should look at is rolling back the vehicle sticker fees to the 2004 rates. I think that should be a given. And if ever, I don't know if there's really any other need. I think just rolling back to the original rates that we had in 2004. And I would make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay,
On the question, Alderman Subak?
I agree with rolling them back, but the only problem is the idea behind making a pledge to residents that we're going, if the referendum passed, that we would do something. The seniors paid $1 before, and they paid $1 after the increases. So, and quite
this is
honestly,
I'm not done yet.
right? Okay.
Okay,
So, but we've got to do something on the water rebate, because otherwise we're telling the seniors, thank you for supporting this, and your reduction was $1. So.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to roll back the vehicle sticker rates to the 2004-05 rate.
For the 0607.
Right, to the 0607. Thank you, Alderman
no,
Subak.
it's to the 2000, to the 04 rates
Right,
for
for
the
0607.
for,
Fiscal year 0607.
okay, for fiscal year 0607.
Okay.
07, 08, sorry,
Sorry.
right. See, it gets confusing when you start crossing over the years, but you're right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then the second item I'd kind of like to further explore would be the idea of rather than doing a rollback on the water rates, I think the idea of doing the garbage cans really would serve a multi-purpose. I mean, what we would be looking at is the city would pay the initial cost. The city would pay the initial cost up front of $100,000 or $150,000, whatever it is, and those cans would be given to every resident that has the service in the city. And then what Maggie, I think what you were referring to, Maggie, the 25 cents, putting that on, that would be done for replacing those cans in the future, for the cost of replacing the cans in the future, not for paying for that can, the original can, because that would be our give back to the residents, would be that original can. I think that's better than when you look at doing a rebate of $25, okay, a one-time rebate of $25 on the water to all the water customers. $25 is nothing. I mean, here's something that's tangible that the residents, all the residents, would be able to use in the form of the garbage cans. It does make it easier. In Addison, they have them. My mom's almost 80 years old. My mom is able to wheel that can out every week by herself out to the curb. Okay, so I mean, they do work really well, and I think that would also improve what Sunday night and Mondays look like around the community, and especially on windy days when we have garbage flying all over the neighborhoods. Because there are some residents that do use just plastic bags to put their garbage out in, because that's where our ordinance is set up today. If we go to this, we can change our ordinance as well to require that they use this can, which would actually, then it would solve two problems. It would be our give back, and it would also be, solving the problem of having garbage blow down the streets.
Thank you. I'm going to maintain that the option itself, though, does not give back to all tax-paying residents. It only gives back to a certain percentage that are individual dwelling homes. It does not give back to the taxpayers in high-rises. It does not give back to the citizens of Georgetown townhomes. So I don't agree unless there is some way to give back to all of the tax-paying residents. Mr. Murmas? And then I'm going to call on Alderman Subak and Alderman Piesak.
On a day-to-day basis, I handle all the complaint calls about BFI garbage pickup, and probably it's safe to say maybe once a week or every other week I get a call saying there's garbage blown all over the yard. What can you do about this? Why can't we have those containers that Addison has? It doesn't look good in the community. They say I called BFI, and they say Wooddale doesn't offer that. So I do get quite a bit of phone calls asking for these containers.
Alderman Subak.
When we negotiated the BFI contract, that was one of the issues we looked at with Rich Vandermolen, who was our representative at BFI, now known as Allied. And his recommendation, because I thought that would have been the way to go, I thought that was the way all communities were going. His recommendation, I think this was probably a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, was not to use those garbage cans. He said the problem, he said those garbage cans are usually recommended in certain communities where they were having garbage problems with it being out for days at a time. And he said that Wooddale was not at a point to use that. He said the downsize of these large garbage cans are the storage issues. Everybody knows that everybody's garage gets filled up, and the problem is people don't have enough room in their garage when they had everything else to usually put both cars in the garage, one's out in the driveway, and now you're going to have an issue of where you're going to store these things, and they're going to get stored on the side of houses, in the front of houses. And so the recommendation from BFI back then, 2 years ago when Jeff wasn't here, was that we shouldn't do this. So if we want to evaluate this, I think there's certainly discussion, but we need to bring the representative back in from BFI to discuss it, because I think there might be, as much as some residents might want this, there'll be enough other residents out there that might not. I can see it's an 80-pound garbage can, you have an 80-year-old lady, they might like to walk out their garbage in a little bag because that's all they have, versus having this large thing to store, especially if you have a house with a one-car garage or a garage that's filled with other items.
And to add to that, though, if we're looking to fix a problem, then we can do it at that time when we talk with BFI, and then that funding would come out of the fund for the garbage pickup if we're trying to fix a problem for garbage pickup. Mr. Murmas.
Before I brought up the idea of the containers formally to Mr. Vandermolen, he actually did a 180 from that original position when I wasn't here 2 years ago, and he said Wooddale actually has an excessive amount of garbage for the area, and we have an excessive wildlife problem that he wasn't aware of before, and now that these containers might be a better idea. This is before I brought up anything to him.
Sure, but I think that might have been in a response that I think BFI, because we are so good at negotiating, that they're kind of going back now saying, boy, Wooddale's on a flat rate for the first 2 years. And he has said that it's ultra thin, and so they're going to look for a way to try to also come back to Wooddale. And one of my other issues would be with these cans is what about when you have the remodeling projects going on, other issues where BFI, the one thing we've always done well is garbage, and everybody says that everything gets put out there, gets taken. And now when you have these large cans, it's going to be a little bit more restrictive. Now you're going to have the 2 days a year where they can dump anything. Otherwise, you're stuck with the stuff. So I don't know if Mr. Vandermolen was motivated by renegotiating the contract or if he's really looking out for Wooddale and the wildlife problems that he says he didn't know about, even though we've been with BFI for the last probably 15, 20 years.
Alderman Pizak.
In a sense, I agree with having a container that doesn't get blown all over the neighborhood. Unfortunately, I have nowhere to put a container of that size. I'm not going to put it alongside the house. It's going to look worse than the other stuff that my neighbor's got alongside his house. But I could see most of these garbage cans are going to end up sitting out in front of houses and then alongside of them and stuff. And it's going to look worse. In my case, it's going to look worse than what there is now. Instead, we need to come down on people about using secure containers, not necessarily of this size to make it easier on the garbage company to pick them up with a mechanical arm on a truck, which I know is what they're going for. But it's a problem, period. As far as I'm concerned, it's just going to create more aggravation.
Alderman Ptolemy.
Yeah, I still think it's a good idea, but I would agree with Alderman Pizak as far as exploring the actual, maybe that's what we should do is actually explore the ordinance, our existing ordinance, and maybe just need to tighten up our existing ordinance. You know, I mean, I will tell you, and, you know, unfortunately, I've had a lot of opportunity lately to drive around, you know, during weekdays. And I will tell you that, you know, you go down the streets and you see there are, you know, there's all kinds of things being put out. And I don't think that this would hinder, you know, like if you have a lawnmower or something like that that you want to throw out, getting rid of that. But, you know, you're not going to have to put that or try and put that in this can. But I'm more concerned about I mean, and as things continue to develop around the area, you know, there's more and more wild animals that are getting in. I mean, I know personally, I don't put my garbage can out until Monday morning because I've learned by experience that if I do, and I've tried everything I can think of, you know, to tying it down and everything, it's all over the street because of the raccoons.
Coyotes.
You know, well, coyotes, raccoons, and, you know, it's like, they're not just, it's not just one area. I mean, this happens all over in different areas of the town. And I guess that maybe that is an issue. I understand Alderman Winger as far as that there are some areas that, you know, don't use the cities. But when you look at the majority of people in the community that are using the service, I mean, they would get a benefit from this down the line. Now, if we elect not to do that, that's fine. But I would still like to bring it up at a future date to discuss at least changing our ordinance, if nothing else, to make it a little bit more stringent and comply, you know, make people put things in garbage cans, you know, go out and buy a garbage can. You know, don't put it out in a plastic bag or in just a bag on the street because that's where a lot of the problems come in.
I'm going to recognize our city manager, and then I'm going to call on a little bit more input, and then my recommendation will be to put this on public health and safety. I'll ask Alderman Pizak if he'll put it on his committee to keep discussing this. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Chairman Winger. I was just going to say that this was only brought up for discussion, and we haven't fully researched this. We could, as far as cost and everything, just to give you some ideas, and staff will bring forward a full report. We could also put it in the newsletter to see what the citizens thought, because we have been getting complaints, and it could be considered at a later time, which I was going to suggest. Also, for those people who wouldn't, it wouldn't be an advantage to them, we could also offer them possibly like a $25 rebate on the water, something like that. So this is just for discussion. We're not asking for any action, but it's really up to you where you want to go with this. However, we felt that it was enough of a problem that we should bring it to your attention for consideration.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Alderman Subak, and I'll go down the row. Alderman Subak?
I agree. We should put it on a future meeting for, I don't care what committee, but for discussion. I think Mr. Vandermolen should be present for that. So, staff doesn't need to do all the research. We can bring public health and safety. We can bring in Rich Vandermolen, because we can talk to him at the same time about the recycling containers, because I know some communities, they have two large containers. One's for the garbage, one's for the recycling, which encourages both of those. But secondly, I think that I still support the $25 rebate on the water bill. I think that separate and apart from the garbage can issue, that it's a good way to reward. I think that we can do it through an interfund transfer between the two accounts. If it's a larger association, we just would increase the amount of the credit. But is it a lot? No. But it's something to show the residents that we're trying to do what we can. But this should really be evaluated during the budget time, when we can estimate what the revenues are going to be from that sales tax referendum too. Thank you.
Alderman Piesack?
I have a problem with agreeing with any refunds. All of these fees were increased because they matched what our neighbors are charging, because it's what's necessary. Now, if people would realize that the sales tax increase has a specific purpose, and the public does not know, I know they don't know. I mean, the newspaper won't print that Wooddale needs to make a new sewer treatment plant. It's millions of dollars. And it's time we got started on it today. That's all I have to say about it. The fees are there. Sorry, folks. We need to make the city work. We need money to do it.
Alderman Coles?
All right. I don't go for the containers. One reason why, you have to have 3 of them. You've got to remember, when you start raking leaves, you've got another container there. So you got 3. You got one for recycle, you got one for leaves, and then you got one for garbage. So you got 3 big containers alongside your house now, instead of just 1, maybe, or 2, or bags. I put out 17 bags one day. Where's my container? My container will be full the first time I rake. I put 17 bags. Mulch it? You don't mulch 17 bags of leaves. Where are you gonna mulch it to? I burnt it one time, and I got caught by the police department. And they said, there's no fire in Wooddale. That was when I first lived here. So I learned that you can't burn. I used to burn it in the city of Chicago. Never said anybody bothered me there, but here I got nailed the first year. So that's all I gotta say.
Alderman Ptolemy, do you have anything else to
No,
share?
you know what? I don't.
Okay. Alderman Wesley? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, did you wish to speak?
Well, I would just,
Garbage before an election? Do that? Controversial.
that's true. Actually, I was going to talk about water. I just think it's premature to discuss the rebates on the water, but I think that should be an open item. DuPage Water Commission hasn't made their final decision what they're doing and their rates that they're going to be charging us. They may be lowered, they may be giving us a cash rebate, they may be raising the rates. So until we have that information, I think it's just premature on that subject.
Thank you. Alderman Wesley?
Maggie, back up here, your opening statement, the 1% sales tax is for infrastructure. What is a water main and sewer line considered?
It is infrastructure.
Okay, you said that it doesn't affect the water here. That's what the open
No,
statement
I
was.
said it wasn't going to go in the water fund. Okay?
Okay,
The sales tax will be deposited either in a separate fund that's called the non-home rule sales tax fund, or we'll put it in the general fund on a separate line item.
Okay.
But certainly you can use it to pay for infrastructure items in the water and sewer. We'd make a transfer. It would be part of the budget.
Okay. The other thing is, and I totally disagree with the mayor and a lot of people here. You know what? I really think we need to do something with this water fund, because you know what? Even if we have to do, I don't know, maybe, I know we're gonna raise it every year for the next 5 years, I believe it's slated for. Why can't we just freeze them for 1 year? Because really, because you know what? I just think that would be the easiest way, but I feel that the people are entitled to rebate on water fund. We jacked it up. And you know what? The worst part about this whole thing is we didn't look at the people that don't have city water, that only have sewers with us, that got nailed 100% increase. And we didn't look at that when we raised the water rate. These people got nailed with a 100% sewer rate. Not a little increase, a lot. And those people got suffer on that. Okay, so we didn't take that in account. So I really think I would support a water reduction of $25 or a freeze for the next year.
I believe when we did do the increase, we did look at a variety of different charges, though, and in some cases, the non-residential was raised, and it may have been 100%, but it was probably to get them to where they should be, et cetera. So in terms of looking at the water rates and looking at the increases, you know, I'm willing to look at it, but I know that we have the 5-year scale to stabilize the water fund and to ensure that we don't end up in a situation that we were in a couple years ago where we were having deficit spending. Alderman Ptolemy.
I'm sorry. I would like to talk about the water fund for just a second. When you know, again, you can't emphasize enough, and I know Maggie's tried to do this on several occasions. She's brought her PowerPoint out here and tried to get it across to not just this council, but to the community as well. When you start talking about water, especially, you know, what you're doing, it's more than just the water that comes out of the tap. It's everything. It's the chemicals. It's all the infrastructure that's associated to it. It's the water filtration plants. You know, Maggie, what kind of fund is this?
Enterprise fund.
Okay, enterprise fund. And our enterprise fund is